Hi YouTube, this is John Payne. I'm the Executive Director of Show-Me Cannabis, and this is the second week in our series of podcasts. And this week we're going to be talking about the relative harms and dangers of cannabis compared to other substances. We're also going to be discussing whether cannabis is lethal or not, and why cannabis is treated so differently than other substances that it is similar to. Well, only if you were to ingest massive amounts in a very small period of time, and probably no human could actually do it. Cannabis is only lethal if you would ingest 15,000 pounds in 15 minutes, and that's according to the DEA administrative law judge's finding of facts in a 1988 case. So this is coming from the Drug Enforcement Administration, not exactly a pro-legalization mouthpiece. And so that compares with alcohol, tobacco, cocaine, heroin. All those things are lethal at just 5 or 6 times the active dose. So an overdose on any of those substances can happen rather easily. However, cannabis, it is almost impossible for a human being to actually overdose on cannabis. Well, cannabis was made criminal and treated like substances that are far more harmful than cannabis back in the 1930s, and it had very little to do with science. In fact, at the time, the American Medical Association's representative testified in Congress against prohibiting cannabis. However, cannabis was associated with Mexican immigrants and black jazz musicians. In fact, that is why cannabis came to be called marijuana, because it sounded more Mexican, Spanish influence, sounded foreign, and so that was used to kind of scare people into criminalizing the substance that they had known and used pharmacologically for a long time. And that continued well into the 60s and 70s with the counterculture and people not liking hippies, etc. And you can go back and listen to Richard Nixon's tapes talking about how hippies were ruining this country because of using cannabis. Cannabis has been used by Americans since the people came over to Jamestown in the early 1600s. The early American settlers grew hemp, and cannabis was an important part of the American pharmacopoeia for many years prior to its prohibition. However, it became associated with Mexican immigrants in the early 1900s, and that is when it started to be called marijuana. And so the name itself became politicized, and it became associated with a group that was not well liked by most Americans. And that is the primary reason that it was prohibited, not because of any scientific research showing any particular dangers to it. Yes, America fundamentally needs to re-examine the way we conceive of the cannabis plant. And one of the main things that you can do to help that is just to talk about it. For too long there's been a taboo surrounding this subject that has not allowed people to speak freely about it, and it has allowed myths to be perpetuated for many, many years. So I urge you, share this video and talk to your friends and family about this subject and impart the knowledge that you have, because that is what will truly change people's minds. Have an open and knowledgeable conversation about this topic, and we will reform these laws in the near future. People often argue that cannabis is a gateway drug, meaning that if a person uses cannabis, that they are going to go on to use harder drugs like cocaine and heroin. However, a 2004 study that compared drug users in both San Francisco and in the Netherlands found that drug users in the Netherlands, actually, people that use cannabis in the Netherlands, were less likely to go on to use other drugs. And in the Netherlands, as most people know, cannabis is basically legal. And so it actually appears that whatever gateway there is, it is actually the black market that when people go to buy cannabis, when it is illegal, they are introduced to other substances as opposed to when it is in a legal, regulated market, it is sold by itself. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'd urge you to subscribe to this YouTube channel and to support us by going to our website, showmecannabis.com, and making a contribution. Thank you very much.